Mac delivers.
7 seconds left. McDonald. The D-Mac on the drive. Yeah! Scores level. Scores tied up. Range.
At number 4, it's Campbell again. This time from halfway.
Shoots the
Campbell.
Yes! What a basket from Campbell. Right on three-quarter time.
At number 3, Adelaide's Kevin Brooks delivers on a real Hail Mary.
They're in front by a point. They won't get their shot off. Yes, they will. What a shot. What a shot by Brooks. He's a three-quarter god. They were down like 2 and he just throws this thing up. It didn't even look like it had a chance until the end, and it rattled its way through the ring.
At number 2, the Tigers trail Newcastle by a point. Enter Leonard Copeland. And the number 1 buzzer beater of the year, the Magic need 3 to beat Adelaide, and Frank Drimmick delivers. Yes, they're a happy bunch at Magic Lane there as Frank Drimmick delivers on the three-pointer to beat Adelaide.
The game. From 1976 to 1995, he represented Australia more than 300 times, including 4 Olympic Games and 5 World Championships. He was captain of the Boomers for 13 years and played more than 350 NBL games with St Kilda, Canberra, Adelaide and Sydney.
Great hands by Phil Smythe.
But his appointment as coach of the Sixers came with high expectations. After all, he's not the first South Australian sporting son to return home to a coaching position. When Malcolm Blight came back to the Crows, it was the Messiah, the prodigal son returning. When you came to the Sixers, it was the second coming. If you can take the Sixers to a title this year, I mean, you will be held up as a Messiah, don't you think?
As a Messiah, I think we might leave that one with Malcolm. I think if you look at his coaching record, you know, he went into 3 grand finals before he finally won one with the Crows. So, you know, I've still got a bit of a slog to do before I get up there with the Malcolm Blight Messiah, I think.
What do you think of that whole thing, though? I mean, now Greg Chappell's come back for the Redbacks. All these South Australians returning, you think it's...
Oh, I think it's a terrific thing. Look, not necessarily to be from South Australia is going to make you any better a coach in South Australia, but probably the one thing it gives you is a bit of a passion for the state. And if you're the right person for the job, then, you know, you will have success with that, and that little bit of passion probably helps you along the way.
Like the Crows pre-Blight, the 36ers have had a history of underachieving. Despite a succession of big-name players, their only championship was in 1986 under coach Ken Cole, who also had a role in introducing Smythe to the big time. When Phil was 14, Cole picked him for the state team, and today the master still keeps a close eye on his apprentice.
He was a very, very disciplined player in his own way, and he's taken that to the coaching. The thing that's really impressive is how relaxed he is and how much confidence all of the players have in him. You can't win without that, and they all look to him, they listen to everything he says. I think he's doing just a great, great job.
Call the post, call the 4-man that side of the floor.
High praise comes from the players too, who have welcomed Smythe's different style to that of former coach Mike Dunlap. What do you think Phil's philosophy is?
Well, he's just over his shoulder. It's not too bad, I suppose. But yeah, it's very easy going and allows us to play the free-flowing style of basketball. So yeah, it's pretty enjoyable.
There's a real contrast in the styles of Mike Dunlap coaching and your coaching. Coming down at training, everything was just so intense with Mike, whereas you seem pretty laid back.
Yeah, I guess that was his way, and every coach has a different way. His was more that college type, I guess dictatorship is a better word, and that was his style. I'm not having a go at that, but I guess mine is more relaxed, and the players seem to be enjoying that. And I guess I've been a believer that if you're going to be good at what you do, you've got to enjoy it, whether that's basketball or any other type of job. So far that's worked pretty well for us.
Fellas, defensively, way to make a statement, Chubb. Let's take it from here. Here we go. Sixers!
I think one of the great strengths of our team is that, you know, you could talk to any one of the players and they really enjoy being with the group. I mean, they spend huge amounts of time together during the week, yet there'll be three, 4 times a week that they'll get together and play cards with each other, or they'll organise a pool night together. So there's a strength that's formed with that group.
Phil Smythe there, Leon Bignell with that story.
Rucker made that one look easy. Rucker just holds him up and then gets the hand in on. Should go all the way. Will Crawford foul him? He doesn't bother. Oh, gives it away. The pass was intended for Stewart. Quick hands by Rucker and he goes all the way and draws the foul. 15 seconds away from full time. Rucker the steal. Will he pull up for 3? He's only made 1, now he's made 2.
The start of they're currently known as, they play in the CBA, but as of their October tip-off, they will be known as the West Sydney Razorbacks. Simone Thurtell from our Sydney office caught up with West Sydney Razorback Chief Executive Officer Robbie Cadee to find out how the club is faring as their first tip-off approaches.
Why was it so important for you to have a team in West Sydney?
A very good question. I've been asked that on a lot of occasions because, yeah, I've said to people there's times when I wanted to chuck it in too, don't worry about that. There's times where you spit the dummy and say, is it all worth it? I suppose it comes back to, one is to try and achieve something that we set out. And I suppose coming from a basketball sporting background, you've always been goal-orientated to achieve, whether it's making the Australian team, whether it's winning a championship. So that background, I suppose, but also it comes from the people in the area were driving us a lot. If the people in this area never accepted the CBA team, when we moved here, we got great crowd support, great sponsorship support. Now, they accepted that on the, I think, the basis, though, if they did that, they'd get an NBL team. And you felt you'd be letting them down.
Tip-off date for the Razorbacks is getting closer and closer. Tell me what stage you're up to at the moment.
We're at the stage now, obviously, trying to put a team together. We've got our venue organised in that we'll be at the Whitlam Centre in the short term until our stadium is finished, which we're looking about probably December. We are a little bit behind there, but the NBL are aware of that and they've given us permission to use the Whitlam Centre until we're ready. So right now it's all about putting a team together, which we're working very hard at. We will be somewhat young. Two, we're forced into it in a certain way because with the NBL having this short season, we'd call it, or this season now, a lot of the clubs have already signed, a lot of the players have already been signed for this season and next season. So the pool is not going to be that big for the experienced players. So we will be looking at a lot of the younger players, but also in saying that, it's something we've also thought about, that we did want to make sure, yes, there's a certain amount of pressure, I suppose, to come into the league and make a statement initially. But we also realise we're here for the long haul and we want to make sure our foundation in the first year is solid to build from, and obviously that's done with a bit of youth.
All the guys at the moment in the Slammers know that they've got Coach Gordy watching over them every game, you know, so they've got to prove themselves every game. Sort of our performances this season in the CBA is reflecting our prospects for getting a contract when the free agents list comes out, so we're all keeping our fingers crossed there.
Robbie, this is the building on paper. This is the site where it will be built, but it's nowhere near started yet. Tell me what we're looking at to be on this plot of ground.
Okay, as you can see here, the finished product is an 8,500 seat stadium with an accommodation block of 125 room accommodation block. Now that is the finished stages. For our NBL commitments, we obviously don't need all that. And what we will have for our NBL commitments in the first season is a 5,000 seat stadium without the accommodation block. That will come in the second stage and be ready in total completion for our second season in NBL.
So we're actually standing at the moment on perhaps where the court will be?
Pretty much, maybe just a little bit over there as we get closer to there, but yes, pretty much where the jump ball will happen for our first ever NBL game in our new venue, obviously.
What are your goals for the first season of the West Sydney Razorbacks?
Probably to make sure we've got a team on the court that we are proud of, that we can say, you know, they're not just out there and playing and, you know, just filling in some time because, you know, as people say, you got a honeymoon and you can get a few years as an expansion team. No, we're about coming in straight away and making a statement to the NBL that we are here. This team is going to be competitive from the word go. Someone says, how many games you expect to win, I can't answer that because you don't know. I mean, how long's a piece of string? You just don't know. What I'm saying is this team will be competitive and it will make a statement in the NBL in its first year.
Out to make a statement in the NBL, the West Sydney Razorbacks. Darren, you came up against the West Sydney Slammers in the CBA a few weeks ago. You had a good overtime win. How are they going to look? How do you think they'll fare?
Obviously, the team we play is going to be a different team. I think the organisation seems sound, but it was a long weekend when we played them. They only got about 500 or 600 to the game, so to have a 5,000 seat stadium, it's going to be very lonely in there unless they have some supporters. So you got to hope that the Sydney people back them and have 2,000 to a game. I think to start off with is pretty reasonable, but it's going to take them a while. And
you've got to think they're going to need a marquee name, aren't they? Derek Rucker or Shane Heald.
That's right. Robbie talked about the need to make a statement from the first season. Now, if that's Derek Rucker, what better statement than that? One of the all-time great players in basketball.
Yep. Well, as we said, it'll all happen from October, the start of the league's new summer season. And now for an exclusive here on Sunday Basketball, the launch of the league's new summer season logo. And to do that, it's over to the NBL's marketing manager, Peter Johnson.
After 20 wintry seasons, the NBL is moving to a summer competition. To celebrate this radical shift to summer, the NBL is launching a new summer logo.
Looks great. Could mean a new start for the NBL.
I think we should have the basketball on the basketball, like that part there, and NBL across there. That's what I think.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think that?
New. Looks new and fresh.
It's good. It's pretty good. It's all right.
Not bad. A bit bright though.
Yeah, I like the idea of the sun and the summer season and stuff.
Oh, it's just eye-catching. It's brilliant.
Yeah, well, the bright was the colours. I mean, that's what summer's about.
Summer colours.
You're drawing in that it's an NBL league that you're looking for. It's giving you that third dimension.
Yeah.
That hot frizzle around the edge, that sort of saying, let's hot up the season, let's get going for another good NBL season.
Now, what do you think about this new NBL logo?
It's good.
Why?
Because it has...
You could do a little more with the NBL airbrushing, and that'll look a little better, but otherwise than that, it's pretty good. I think the kids will like it.
G'day. There you go. What does summer mean to you?
Beach, surf, sun, bikinis, basketball.
Families like to go out more when it's warm, so hopefully that'll attract more families back to basketball like back in the heydays.
I'd definitely go and see some games.
Now that the season's going to change to the summer, my summer is already filled. I won't be able to do anything but play basketball, which I don't mind.
Come and join us for our first NBL summer season. Tip-off October 8th.
There it is, the new NBL logo for the season, which starts in October. AJ, I rang you during the week. We were speaking about the logo. You said, will kids wear it on T-shirts? That's the key thing. Now the question, will they?
That's the question I still ask. I mean, if that logo is talking to us, for example, it has failed in what it wants to do. It has to speak to the kids. Will kids wear it on T-shirts and caps? We'll wait and see.
David, your impressions?
Not a bad logo. It doesn't stand out and sort of hit me like I'd probably would have liked to see a new NBL logo to do. Now, if you ask me, okay, well, what should it look like? I've got no idea. I'm not a marketing guru, but I think there's certainly something there with the sun, obviously with the summer theme there. But proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how it goes in the next few months by the start of the season starts.
And Darren, everyone else has cast their opinion on it. Your thoughts?
I'm pretty much with Dave. It doesn't jump out and grab me. You think if it's going to be new summer season and they want to really take it off as the big season, because this year's been a little bit quieter, you would think they would have something that's different, something that's really different. And as Dave said, the sun looks great, but just doesn't jump out and grab me. But then again, I'm not an 18-year-old kid. Like to be. But.
You like that on the dance floor, though, truly. And we're also going to see a couple of clubs launching new logos as well. The Townsville Suns becoming the Townsville Crocs. The Magic will have a new logo as well, and I think Canberra and Brisbane and Adelaide as well. So plenty of new logos coming up. Well, I mentioned there the Magic, and their coach is veteran Brian Goorjian. Brian came out to Australia quite a few years ago to be as a player under then, still Melbourne Tigers boss Lindsay Gaze. And recently Brian has been running a series of speeches titled The Life of Brian at the Magic's social club, Club Magic. And in this first excerpt, which we're going to bring you, a two-part series, Brian talks about the 1992 season and the formation of the Magic, the result of a merger between the West Side Saints and the East Side Spectres. And it's coming after the Spectres made the grand final in 1991 and they had had a pretty hectic end-of-year tour in America. So, as we hear from Brian, it was the last thing he was expecting.
No, I am having a lot more fun with this than I thought I would. And last time I started, I came up and I told you about it was a whirlwind tour. I was, George would testify for, everybody was exhausted when the tour finished. I came home, got off the plane and came back, and when I got to the house, the committee was at the house. Now, they weren't that happy to see me. I was surprised to see them, and they sat me down and said, Brian, we're going to merge with the Saints. I was handed a sheet of paper and said, here's 15 people that are now added to your team that you got to deal with. You either got to put these 15 people in or you got to cut these 15 people. And there was people like Nigel Purchase, who was a Melbourne Tiger. I played for the Melbourne Tigers for 8 years. Larry Sinstock, a 3-time Olympian, had left the Gold Coast to come down and live in Melbourne. Gary Fox came out the same time I did, was the head coach, had 2 kids, and was 34, 35 years old like myself and totally dependent on basketball. I could go on and on and on, but that's the list of people I'm looking at. And I at that stage, still hopefully wanted to be liked a little bit, and had been developing a lot of enemies over the last 2 years, and thought, man, I've got to deal with this thing, and I had my team in place. So I called Larry Sinstock. I played the Jungle Ball on Friday with my boys, went across to Middle Park and knocked on the door. And I got a buddy I said, drop me off at, pick me up in 45 minutes. And I said, if I need a helmet, carry one in the car, baseball bat, I don't know what's going to happen in here. I came out 5-10 minutes after I'd gone in there. And I was sitting on the wall right by the Beaconsfield pub, and he circled around. He goes, God, that didn't take long. And I go, no, I got 14 more of those to go. When this thing started to roll and we moved to Melbourne Park, we go 6-0, we go 7-0, we go 7-1. And there's some energy, this Magic team, this new there's some energy on this thing, and a lot of people are coming out to see us play. And we practiced on court 9 at Albert Park, and it was great back then. We practiced on court 9. North Melbourne Giants practiced. There was some dust and some dirt and some wood down in the dead corner. They were over there. And Lindsay had the lights on court 1, and Margaret had the canteen going, and they were there. 10 games later, we go 22-4. We win the regular season. We beat the Cannons, go to North Melbourne, and that thing ends up with the Magic Man riding around with a bicycle with Fisher on the front, and Bruce Palmer throwing his wallet onto the court with a minute to go, telling anybody on his team if they drop the Magic Man, they can have his wallet.
And we've been assured that was a true story there. That was part 1 of The Life of Brian with Magic coach Brian Goorjian. Next week, we'll hear from Brian and his talk about the 1992 championship for the Magic when they beat arch rivals the Melbourne Tigers. But Darren Lucas, you probably would have been playing against Bruce Palmer on that day when he said about dropping the Magic Man. The Magic Man can be infuriating, but what about Brian? He's a great talker, isn't he?
Yeah, Brian certainly has got the gift of the gab, and one thing he didn't mention there, most of the Magic guys or the Spectres guys actually found out about it via the TV. Scott Ninnis rang me up and told me, and I'm like, dude, what's happening here? And then 2 hours later, we all get the phone call. So he left out a few points there, but I'm glad he didn't sort of elaborate on some of my stories, because he loves doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, time now for us to turn our attention to the other semi-final series, which started on Friday night. The Perth Wildcats coming up against the Adelaide 36ers at Challenge Stadium in Perth for their opening game. And before we get to some of the highlights, AJ, it was always going to be an interesting series, and Adelaide, I guess, probably were going to be the favourites. Perth have to take this first game.
This one was a real roll of the dice. I mean, right from the word go, when we knew that the Wildcats and the Sixers would go at it, you knew that there would only be a couple of points in it, perhaps, maybe a 2-1 series. No one would predict a series sweep. Adelaide and Perth have gone back years and years with that sort of rivalry. So this is one we were looking forward to. Adelaide had to shoot the ball well. Perth had to stop Adelaide's transition. So that was really the key to the series.
And historically, as you said, very much fierce rivals. David, we've spoken a lot about Martin Catalini this year. He really gives Adelaide that extra depth, extra punch, doesn't he?
He's just been fantastic this season. He's really come out of his shell, and he's been given the opportunity to play the sort of basketball that he can play now. He's a big guy at 6'7", very athletic, so he can get up and down the floor, he can shoot the three and do very well inside, and also from around the sort of 15-foot mark. So I think Phil's really been the catalyst for Catalini, excuse the pun, and I'm trying to get him into a position where he can really give it his best, and very, very important player for them. And for the rest of this series, he's going to really have to, you know, including the final if they actually get there, he's going to be one of the main men in that Adelaide side, which may enable them to win the title.
And a lot of talk about Perth's ageing legs. Darren, do you agree?
I was just thinking that Perth have got a lot of older players, and they don't have a lot of youth in there. I think Anthony Stewart's probably one of the younger of the players. And you look at Adelaide, and they've got some, you know, the average age is a little bit less. You've got Brett Maher there and Rupert Sapple. They're all, you know, Scott Ninnis is about 45, but you know, they've got some young legs in there. And I think in the finals, you've got to have a mix of youth and a mix of experience, as Adelaide do have. And I think that's what might be the difference. I mean, you've got Vlahoff, who's a great leader, but I think you need both.
Yep, and how about Brett Maher as well, having an absolutely outstanding season so far, averaging 17 points a game, and he's just been getting it done, hasn't he?
He really has, and I mean, the tag on Brett Maher used to be one of the best Australian guards in the game.
Yeah.
Now one of the best guards, period. And I guess both David and Luke have also played against Brett Maher, played a lot of time against him, and would have seen the development over the years.
Yeah, one thing about Brett is, apart from being a great player, he's a real good kid, and you know, like a good kid, he's a great guy. And he doesn't talk a lot of, you know, talk back to the players. You know, he's very team orientated and just a great leader.
So there's the half-time score. Adelaide out by 11, 58-47. Brett Maher had 15 points in the second quarter alone and has 20 points to half-time. So the job ahead for the Perth Wildcats, AJ, in the second half.
Certainly is. We look at Brett Maher, 20 points, Darnell Mead, 10. Darnell Mead's been a great player for Adelaide this year also. Not a big scorer, but done enough in the first half to give the Sixers that break.
Well, let's pick up the action now with 5 minutes remaining in the third quarter. Adelaide leading by 9, 68-59.
And they reset to the Wildcats with Grace. A couple of them pick themselves up, wasting no time. Stewart from long range. It comes back to Grace. Got Brooks off his feet. Fisher in the corner. Hits. For three.
It's willing out there, and I think some of the finesse has gone out of the game. Brooks is trailing a little bit. Maybe that week's break is affecting him. Well, maybe he'll make me eat those words. Why not?
Well, just when you counted him out.
Never counted Brooks out. Up he comes with a rebound, so doing it at both ends of the court, but the margin has shrunk to 9, although bear in mind it was 11 at the half. Brooks wide open again.
Oh, that'll break your heart. Brooks is up and he's focused, he's come down and he's made the last 2 3-pointers, and all of a sudden this charge has lost a bit of its steam.
And I've got to say, John, a lot of the Wildcat fans are looking daggers at you.
Well, Brooks was trailing and he didn't look energetic. Ooh, he didn't have to be, he just drained it.
Darnell Mead.
Those guys Wildcats are sitting back in that zone, and that top of the key is wide open for them.
Crawford, the bench wanting to travel. That's the 36ers bench. They certainly traveled. Up up off their chairs very quickly. Davis comes up with the rebound after the shot from long range. Back comes Darnell Mee. Thought about it, couldn't get the penetration he wanted. Comes again, then kicks it back outside. Davis to Riley. Riley beyond the three-point line now. Shot clock is down to 14. Riley to Catalini. Confronted there by Grace. Catalini backs off. Riley again. Takes it in. Knocked away, but they call it against Fisher, I think.
Fisher with a holding foul. He won't be happy about that.
Substitutions for both teams. Marr coming back into the game now. Michael's in for the Wildcats. Crawford will sit down. James Crawford has 11 points. Catalini comes out. Likewise, he's got 11. And the margin is 12 points. So for all their effort, they've lost a point, the Wildcats, since the half.
Oh, there's a nice little putback by me. Just extended that arm. And the 36ers have just consolidated after that rush of the 36ers. And there's some tired bodies from the Wildcats on the bench in Blahoff and Crawford.
Well, Darnell Mee is a good rebounder. He's also a good offensive rebounder. That's hurt the Wildcats all season long. Guards getting to the offensive boards on them.
Lichty been a little bit cold. Drives. Pulls up. That one doesn't match. Michaels with a putback.
Resident cheerleader getting involved.
You know what he wants.
Here's Mark Davis.
Michaels has 3 fouls incurred very early in the game. He's the man that's done the danger tonight. Oh, that'll be on Fisher for a hold.
Well, that ball.
Black not happy with it.
Must have looked tantalizing there because it was shown to the defense, just hanging it out there, and Fisher reaching in.
Yeah, there's no doubt there was a foul.
Yep.
There it is. You can't get it any more obvious than that. Don't ever believe the players, folks.
He couldn't resist the temptation, though, could he? It's Darnell Mee to Marr, looking to penetrate, kicks it back to Riley for 3.
Boy.
And they've answered the challenge in the best possible way. It was 15, then suddenly back to 6, and now back out to 15. 79 to 64 inside the last 2 minutes of the third period.
Little charges and a lot of energy. Wildcats not so good from range.
They need a score here.
Yep. They're struggling at the other end, of course. You know, they've given up 79 points with about 2 minutes before three-quarter time, and Marr's not going to stop.
A perennial playoff team in recent seasons, apart from last year. They're looking good.
They've made 10 three-pointers so far in this match, and Marr has made 6 of those.
Stewart for 3.
This has turned out to be a good old-fashioned shootout.
Darnell Mee.
Oh, Michaels almost put it in. Wildcats are struggling to stop the penetration, and on the outside, of course, that penetration is giving up to a lot of excellent three-point shots.
Adelaide impressive, too, getting back in numbers. For 3, Stewart hits again. Well, suddenly Anthony Stewart making his presence felt.
Darnell shook his head at Phil like, hey, what can we do?
Not a lot when those shots are there, and of course Stewart needs to answer that call. And we saw what Brooks's range was like. I think Lichty's done the right thing and got right out on top of him.
So many dangerous shooters. Blahoff knocks it away from Marr. Takes it in. Marr just backs off and lets him have the 2.
Smart move by Marr. He wasn't going to give him the foul.
Marr. Well, there's something special. The alley-oop and Catalini just soaring in.
Well, the crowd and everybody looking for a tech foul, and that would be an absolute tragedy. He's entitled to hang on that ring, folks. If you get up that high, it's a long way down. You've got to have time to clear the deck underneath. Catalini's done that on this court before in the SkyWest Basketball League in a memorable final.
Grace follows his shot, but it was tapped away over his head. Marr, 3-on-1 break. Catalini, the pass not so good. Really, Marr following up, makes the 3.
Is it easy?
Oh.
And Brett Maher did it all, didn't he? 36 points there, thanks to TVW7 in Perth for that coverage. The 36ers home by 17 points. Catalini with 20. Me had 16 and 14 rebounds. James Crawford led Perth scoring with 22. The Wildcats had the edge on the boards, 42 to 38, 10 turnovers apiece. But Adelaide outshot Perth 57 to 43% from the field in one of the key stats, and Brett Maher making 7 of 11 three-pointers. Does anyone here pick Perth to come back either today and win Game 2 in our live match from 4 p.m. or win the series?
I like them to pull one back. I think there's too much pride on that Perth roster to be swept in a series like this one. So I think they will really try and take it up to Adelaide today. Just turn it into a real slog. Maybe try and pull the tempo back just a little bit and make Adelaide beat them in the half court. I mean, Adelaide have gone 114 to 97. Half their guys hadn't played for the last month of the season. Yeah. That's a great way to come back into playoff basketball.
Yeah, really gelling for them. David Andrew Vlahoff should score more than 4 points today, shouldn't he?
Yeah, you'd expect a little bit more out of Andrew. But just looking at that game generally, I thought that Perth, whilst the score doesn't really indicate the closeness of the game, I thought that the electricity that the team actually had on the floor was something that you'd expect out of them playing good playoff basketball. It was not like they had their heads down and they were beaten convincingly. I think that when you're, playoff basketball comes down to playing some pretty solid defence. Now, when a team comes out and shoots 55% from the three-point line, 57% overall, there's not a lot you can do about it. When guys are coming down, Brooks and Maher off the break and just dinging threes, there's not much you can really do about that. I mean, you've got to obviously get out in guys' faces, but they just had that knack on Friday night where they're able just to come out and shoot anything they like. Now, Perth, I thought, were really in the game and were emotional and had the excitement they needed on floor to actually take it to them. But when Adelaide come out and shoot like that, there's not much you can do about it. So I'd expect Perth probably to come back today.
Yeah, 57% from the field, certainly outstanding clip. And Darren, just finally from you, your thoughts on today's game? Can you see Perth coming back?
I think the way Perth have to go is obviously have to shoot better, but they've got a lot of strength. You've got Vlahoff, you've got Fisher. That's a lot of muscle there. They really need to start throwing that around because Adelaide's not the strongest team. You've got Catalini and Davis, but they really now need to start throwing their weight around a bit. And what's that Frankenstein guy that's playing? Dwayne Daniels.
Dwayne Dewey Michael.
I think he needs to play more.
Thank you,